On today's video, we're going to be talking about Full. Full is made by the same people who made 47 Meters Down. If you don't know what 47 Meters Down is, well, I'll go grab it. There. This is 47 Meters Down, starring Claire Holt and Mandy Moore. It is about two friends who get trapped in a shark cage, and then the shark cage snaps, the chain snaps, and then they fall all the way down. 47 meters down, to be exact, and they're down at the bottom of the ocean. And they can't swim upwards so quickly because, well, if they did do that, they'd get the bends and all this other nasty stuff that happens when you swim upwards too quickly from so deep down, deep, dark, down, deep, dark. And so one of them, well, you're gonna have to just figure that out for yourself. I'm not spoiling 47 Meters Down today. It's not 47 Meters Down in the title. Matt, they are the people that made this movie. I don't know if it's the same person that directed it. This one is directed by Johannes Roberts. This one is directed by Scott Mann. Oh well. Well, let's look at the production. The producers, though. You can look at the producers here. Ah, you see here a film by Johannes Roberts. And we've got directors in association with Dimension Films. Is Dimension Films? No. Is the Fizz Faculty. Fizz Faculty? Fizz Faculty? There's a Fizz Faculty production company. Well, I'm not surprised about that. Dragon Roots Flexibond Films. Altitude Film Sales. That's ironic. Altitude Film Sales. Well, I'm not gonna go looking through it for any producer credits that are similar. But then they say right here, or not right here, do they say it on the back, the back. Yeah, right here. From the producers of 47 Meters Down. And they say co-starring Jeffrey Dean Morgan on the little description in the back. Co-starring Jeffrey Dean. The reason why they say co-starring Jeffrey Dean Morgan is because they got him for about a day to film two to three scenes because his name can help sell the film. This film was made for about $2 to $3 to $4 million. It made about 10 times that. Now 20 something million isn't a lot to speak of in regards to a normal box office return. But when you look at, say, a $1 to $2 to $4 million budget, with maybe twice that in regards to marketing, yeah, you made your money back and then some. So I'm not surprised if there's going to be a fall 2. Let's fall off something even taller. Now, the production qualities in this is really good. There's a lot of practical effects. There's crane shots. There's really good drone shots. There's iPhone shots, recordings with the phones and stuff. Because, you know, these two were stuck up here on not necessarily a 2,000-foot tower. They built maybe about a 100 to 200-foot tower. And they put them up there via cranes. They had to do their own makeup up there. And they cursed quite a bit. But you see, this film is PG-13, so you can't really have all those cursings. So the only CG malogicalness is After Effects with, I believe, AI technology, which fixed the lip syncing so that the redubbed parts that weren't cursing got to be put in there to make it look like they were actually saying the redubbed parts. And there's no book. They bleeped out the cursing. Well, they didn't bleep out the cursing. There's no cursing at all. But there's AI lip sync malodgings. This technology isn't new. No, they do this technology with when they're translating films into other languages, so that when, for example, You have this person speaking Spanish. If this film was recorded in English, her mouthpiece lip words would be forming English sounding words in this, and then you'd see Spanish coming out because of the Spanish dubbing. There would be a dissonance between the lips and the Spanish wordings. So they would use AI technology to fix the word mouth lip syncing wordingness to match how the word lip mouth movingness would be in the Spanish language. And they do it in all the other languages as well. And so they used the technology here to fix all of the cursing that these two ladies did while they were trapped up top of a 200-foot tower, 100 to 200-foot set. It's actually 2 to 3,000 feet high. We're gonna get to the plot in a moment, but the production quality of the behind the scenes is good. They built a practical set here. They used a lot of practical effects. They filmed on a location of an old hot area, and it was actually cheaper to do this instead of doing this at a set and putting all sorts of CGI all over the place. You know, it's like, I wish films did this more often. Big films did. This isn't exactly a big film at all, but I would like to see bigger movies go back to doing these types of productions. Going to a location, filming, building a set, doing most things with practical effects. It's amazing to do this because it makes it feel real. It makes it feel like you're watching something that's actually way up there. 100 feet is still pretty high. It's not that high, but you wouldn't want to fall from 100 feet. But they do have a lot of safety precautions. They made sure even if they fell off of this thing, they'd be just fine. They were very careful. They were very safe. There's a lot of good stuff here. This tower and the plot. We're going to talk about the plot, though. Alright? We have 3 crazy, out-of-their-mind fools. The film opens with these 3 crazy fools climbing a cliff with mediocre equipment that I wouldn't recommend using. I would recommend you use a lot more sturdier equipment. Not just slamming things into professional climbers would look at that opening of the film, and they would feel hurt. They would feel pain, and they would go, "Well, no wonder one of you fell off. You did that to yourself." But honestly, it's entertaining. We get the 3 fools climbing up the mountain. We have the 2 girls, they're best friends. We have girl 1, I think her name is Becky. Girl 2's name, I don't remember her name, but her YouTube channel name is Danger D, so we're gonna call her Danger D. Becky, Danger D, and the 3rd dude is the husband of this girl, Becky, and his name is Dan, played by Cuba Gooding Jr.'s kid. If I'm right about that, it's his son. He only gets about 1 to 2 minutes of screen time before he takes a off the mountainside. Oh, it's a very tragic thing, but you weren't taking too many safety precautions here, and this is a very perilous, irrational sport here, and that I would recommend doing with such lackadaisical, lax equipment. But no, one of them falls and he takes a tumble. He's dead. He's done. He's dead. 51 weeks later. Now 51 weeks pisses me off. 51 weeks pisses me off. It's about 57 days. 357 days. That is about a week from a year. You could have just said a year later, but no. The script actually says it's almost been a year. So, 51 weeks, 357 days, it's almost been a year. So that's... but making me do math. Ugh. But yeah, it's been 51 weeks since Dan took a fall to die. Becky here is still broken up about this. She's drinking every night, she's moping, she's feeling sorry for herself, and she's calling Dan's cell phone line to hear his voicemail. Is she still paying for his cell phone service just to hear his voicemail? Because I would honestly think that they would cancel that within the first month of him dying, and then there would be no more cell phone line. There'd be no more. It's for the film. It's for the film. It's for the film. Anyways, she's feeling sorry for herself, and Jeffrey Dean Morgan shows up and says, "Hey, I'm your pappy in this film. You gotta feel you gotta stop feeling sorry for yourself. That dude you were with was a bad dude. I knew he was no good. You think he would be moping around 51 weeks later? Do you think he'd be feeling bad about himself?" And he'd say, "No, he's not feeling bad at all. No." And then Becky goes like, "Go away, Jeffrey Dean Morgan. I don't need your support. I'd rather walk home." So she walks home and she calls Dan's voicemail again. About an hour later, they canceled his voicemail service and it says, "This number's no longer in service." Anyways, the voicemail's no longer in service and she's feeling sorry for herself. So she pulls out some prescription medication and says, "Hey, you know what? I kinda don't like it here anymore." But then she gets a call on the phone, and it's Danger D coming around to say, "Hey, don't take those. That's a square's way out. Climb this with me. If you fall, it'd be like you took those, but at least you took 'em doing something not really worth doing, but doing something." So, Danger D says, "Hey, I found this remote TV tower out in the desert, and it's in severe disrepair. It's abandoned. Let's climb to the top of it and take pictures of ourselves up here. It'll be great. You need to do this to get over your fears of falling, to get over your husband's death. Let's do it. Let's get out there and climb this tower." So they climb the tower. So they drive out here to the middle of nowhere. They walk 2 miles because there's a fence that says, "Danger! Risk of death!" And then they don't believe the sign. They don't heed the warnings of the sign. You see, if I saw that sign that said "risk of death" and I go like, I find death to be very disagreeable. Let's go home. No, they don't find death that disagreeable, I guess. Well, considering the bottle of the. Anyways, they climb over they climb over the hill, the gate, and they walk 2 miles to the base of the tower, and they start their climb. There's about maybe 2,000 feet of inner cage ladder climbing. You can hear the creaking of this thing as they're climbing up. You can look at the bolts. So many of these bolts that have kept this tower in position, in place, they are in severe disrepair. A lot of them are loose. Some of them are falling out. And as a person that looks at bolts and knows how to close bolts and tighten bolts and sees loose bolts, and they go like, "This isn't how this is gonna fall apart. This is gonna fall right apart. I'm looking at the structure of this thing and I'm seeing there's no structural integrity to this thing at all. You shouldn't climb this at all. It is in severe disrepair. You probably would have better luck climbing that mountain again." But no, they have to climb this tower. They have to do it because it's twice as high as the Eiffel Tower, apparently. So they climb it, they're climbing up the cage, it's rattling, it's ricketing, it's shaking, there's a lot of bird poop and all that stuff going around. There's some Chekhov's gun stuff too. As they were walking through the desert to make it to this tower, they saw a bunch of vultures eating the carcass of a still living animal. She's not very happy to see this, and she goes, "Well, that's just the way of life. It's just how it is. Scavengers gotta eat too, right?" So now they're climbing up, and they see the vultures going about. They're doing their thing. There's some nests up on this tower, so it's like, well, maybe some of those vultures are going to come back here eventually, right? Well, they get through the cage, and then there's an outer ladder going from this little base here, all the way up to the top of the tippy top here. So they're climbing an outer tower. You could hear the wind, the sound design in this film, the camera angles. The director of photography in this film should have won an award, because everything, you feel the height, even though it's just a 100-foot set. You could feel the height of this. You could. They said that this thing is like 2,000 feet. You can feel that length. You could see that, like, the illusion of depth, the illusion of all this stuff, the angles of the camera, the very isolated personal closeness of all of these angles makes you really feel like you're climbing this thing with them. And I can really appreciate that, and I can also hate that, because I absolutely hate that. Look at no, that's not for me, no. So they're climbing up this thing. They climb up the outer tower. You can feel the wind. It's blowing their hair almost constantly. Almost constantly, their hair is billowing in the wind. You could feel it. You could feel it on their clothes. You could feel it, and they're definitely not prepared for this thing. Look at their shoes. They should be wearing, like boots, and they should have, like, gloves on their hands so they're not grabbing a bunch of rusted lattice stuff and getting rusted little paint chips and crap in their hands. They should be wearing gripping gloves. They should have boots. They should have all sorts of equipment that they don't have because they didn't go to the hardware store or nothing. No, they just have a bunch of nothing. They have maybe a 50-foot rope. They have maybe some little clippers for their belts or whatever. They clip to one another, so if one falls, the other can fall too, I guess. But yeah, they climb to the top, and they loosen a couple of the very loose bolts, because this tower is in severe disrepair. Severe disrepair. They climb to the top, and, like I predicted, the ladder falls off! It's gone! They're trapped at the tippy top. There's an emergency box up here with a flare gun with a single flare and a pair of binoculars. Isn't that helpful? Ooh, there could have been like a landline phone / radio up at the top of this thing, Back in the, maybe, well, no, wait, alright. I think the plot actually told us this. When this thing was built, at the time, it was the tallest structure, man-made structure in the United States. Now it's about the 4th tallest. Well, let's look up the first 3 tallest structures in the U.S., the actual first 3. Let's look those up real quick. Well, I did not feel like looking up all 3 of the tallest structures, so I just looked at the tallest structure in the continental United States. And we have here the KRDK-TV mast television transmitting tower in North Dakota. A 2,060-foot / 630 meters structure. Currently the tallest structure in the United States. Continental United States, probably also the other states and provinces and whatever territories or whatever. But it's looking at the design of this thing. I think this is the actual design they took inspiration from. Maybe I could be wrong, but this looks like the design that this film took for their fictional tower here. It is a massive, tall little structure. The cage with the roll cage with the ladder in the middle of the cage going all the way up to the top, and then there is an outer structure here going all the way to the top of this thing with the little thingamajiggy up at the top. So they do have to replace that bulb. Every now and again, every few years, somebody has to go up here and replace that bulb unless it's solar powered. A lot of these things are probably solar powered now, but they do have to replace the bulb for every now and again. They have to come up to the tippy top of this thing. In this set, on this film set, there is a point in the film where this lady has to climb to the tippy top of the tower, and unscrew. You know how if you're at the base of you're standing on ground like a normal person, you look off in the distance to see a tower, and you see a blinking red light or something, and then you go like, well, you know what? Do people ever have to change that light bulb? Does that light bulb ever go out? And you go like, well, yeah, probably it does, because you go up the top of this and it's basically just a normal light bulb. She unscrews the light bulb and does a life hack that we see a Chekhov's gun for earlier in this film with this lady. They're at a diner. Her phone is nearly dead, and I'm already smacking, face palming, going like, why do you let your phones die? Why do you let your phone just go all the way to dead? You know, I'm looking to plug my phone in as soon as it hits 60% power. I never let it go below 50 if I can help it. You know, phone's already almost dead. I'm like, that's another gripe for another time. But yeah, she shows a life hack to her friend, going like, well, take your little charger. We're going to unscrew this light bulb at this diner table booth we're sitting in, and we're going to plug this in at the little screw, and then her phone charges. And they're going to try that at the top of this tower to charge her drone. They bought a drone, so they're going to charge that thing up the tippy top of this tower so that, so that they could fly the drone to the ground to go like, hey, look, there's a drone here. We wrote, help, we're at the top of this thing, send help. But, you know, terrible things happen. But we're going to get to that. So they climb up, the ladder flies away. The ladder is gone. And they're now stranded at the top of the tippy top of the tower. And they go like, well, crap. So they check their phones. There's no signal up here, probably interference from... you can't see it here, but there is a dish right around here somewhere. There's probably, that thing's probably interfering with their service, so they can't do anything. But they had service at the ground. They had service down there, and so they take Danger D's phone, and they put it in one of her shoes, the shoe that she's got on. They put the phone in the shoe to cushion it. They try to send a text message to say, hey, send help. And then they tie it into her shoe. They put a sock in the shoe to keep the phone from flying out. And they drop the phone off the base of the tower to hope that it sends the message at some point before splattering on the ground below. It doesn't work, of course. And then, so they're stuck up here for a full 24-hour period. And they go like, alright, we gotta get something. The bag, she just brings a backpack with a single strap. A single shoulder strap. No wonder she lost her backpack. Backpack fell onto this little TV dish. There's a little TV dish right here, and her backpack fell there. Luckily, it didn't fall to the ground! So, they go like, well, we got this rope, 50 feet of rope. We're gonna tie it to this tower, and I'm gonna climb down here to get our backpack. To get the backpack, because there's a single bottle of water in there. So, they do that. They climb down to get the backpack, and she gets stranded down there. Because, you know, it's not long enough. The rope wasn't long enough, so she had to let go of the rope to get to the dish. She got the backpack. She tied it to the rope, and she goes like, I need to jump to get to the rope to the backpack. She gets to the rope, but she falls off the backpack. And then, but apparently she lands on the backpack. And so she has to pull the rope up, because her hands got messed up or something. And they drink the water, and they last another day. And there's still no help. They try to launch the flare at a little trailer down here, but it's just a bunch of criminals. They steal their car and they run off, right? So they're stuck up here. There's nobody coming, and they get the idea to try to charge the drone. So she climbs up to the tippy top with the little flashing, the red light on the tower is. Vultures are trying to nip at them now because they're getting weaker. Because, you know, they're scavengers. They like, oh, look, fresh meat. And, well, so they're trying to fight off the vultures, and she's charging the drone through the life hack that Danger D showed her. And this works somehow, right? This works somehow. So she charges her phone. her drone, and she gets the drone down there. It's almost in front of the diner or whatever to get help or whatever, and then it gets hit by a semi-tractor truck. The drone gets hit by a truck. Of course it does. Of course it does. Of course it does. And nobody looks at the drone that's on the floor. It's just some roadkill. So the truck just drives off, and they're stuck up there again. And she goes like, well, crap, at least I have you for company. And then Danger D says, but you don't have me for company. I'm dead. And she goes like, oh, you're not? You're right there. And he goes like, no, I'm not. I'm down there. So she looks down on the little dish, and she sees that Danger D actually died, and she hallucinated this entire thing because her knee is infected with a cut that she got when she fell off the ladder and almost died. So she's delirious up here. A vulture tries to come to kill her. She grabs the vulture by the neck, kills the vulture, eats it raw! like badass, like she just eats the vulture raw, man. So she eats the vultures to get some energy. She jumps down to the satellite tower, to the little dish, right? She jumps down to the dish, and she tries to send a message in her phone, taking her dead friend's shoe, puts the phone in the shoe, saying, we got one shot at this, we just have one shoe left. So she cushions the shoe in her best friend's body. There's a hole in her best friend's body. She puts the shoe in the body, in the cushiony body, and she pushes the body off the tower. The body provides enough cushion to reduce the impact that would break the phone, apparently. So when the body went thunk on the ground below, the phone was able to send a text message to Jeffrey Dean Morgan. Jeffrey Dean Morgan gets the coppers and the firemen and everybody, and they come out here, they rescue Becky, and they go home. And the irony here is that Jeffrey Dean Morgan called Danger D and said, hey, take her off on a wacky adventure, maybe this might make her not sad anymore. So, in a way, Jeffrey Dean Morgan got Danger D dead. There's some drama in the film as well, because apparently Danger D and Dan, her husband, had an affair, but don't worry, it's okay. They had an affair before they got married. It was when they were engaged. But then Danger D said, you know what, this feels like I'm being a terrible friend. I really shouldn't be cheating on my best friends, man. And so, she ends it. She ends the little affair. They get married. Dan never talks about the affair. He never admits to having had an affair. And I'm like, you know what? You know what, Becky? You know what? I would have been like, since Danger D comes clean about having had an affair with Dan that you probably never would have told her about had they were they not stranded up here expecting to die. But I'd be like, you know what? Maybe the husband's not worth grieving over because, if he cared as truly, strongly about you, he never would have done it in the first place. He never would have even thought about it. He never would have even entertained the thought, But, so they had an affair. Dan's dead, and now Danger D's dead, and Becky's left alone. Her year of grieving was grieving over a man that Jeffrey Dean Morgan said did not deserve her pain and sorrow, and so Becky finally agrees that Danger Dan did not deserve her pain and sorrow because he was a cheating, infidelious little... And so she drives off with Jeffrey Dean Morgan, and the film ends. It has a rather cop-out ending, ironic, because the cops are all over the tower floor having rescued her. But it has a little bit of cop-out ending. But it was very good all the way up to the ending. It had a good plot. It's a very generic plot. It's basically very, very similar to 47 Meters Down. Almost very, very similar. There's an isolated cast in these two characters, and they have to bounce off one another. They have to have real chemistry, real believable chemistry, and you do see this in the two friends. You could see believe the height of this thing. Even though my Vulcan logic brain looks at this thing and says, you know what, I wouldn't even entertain the thought of climbing it. But then, I'm not a thrill seeker. I don't seek illogical thrills that you could die from. I'm not a fan of death. I'm just not a fan of it. I'm not a fan of it. And I go like, you know what? Maybe I'll leave this to somebody who's actually professionally trained to repair towers. They climb up the tower, they fix those bolts, they put some solution rust resistant solution on these old little things, and they go like, we fixed it. But they know this abandoned tower. Nobody uses this anymore. This thing is eventually gonna fall over and just keel itself over in time. That's what everybody is hoping happens. But apparently somebody does come up here to change the light bulb every couple of years, because the light bulb was still working. According to this film's lore, I don't actually know how actual towers and their little light bulb blinking this works. But we have tower climbers and all that stuff that people maintain these things, because we wouldn't want them to fall over. Sometimes little dishes get hurt in big bad gusts of wind, and somebody has to come up here and repair them. But whatever. I'm not gonna. It's a severe disrepair tower. Two thrill seekers climb it, and they get stuck. Honestly, I felt the anxiety here, because I'm not a big fan. Look at that. No, I'm not a big fan of that. I prefer this to this. No, this is very, very anxiety inducing. I wouldn't recommend this to anybody who has a fear of heights at all, because the director of photography, the cinematography, the camera shots, the angles, you will feel the height of this tower. You will feel it, and you will feel that anxiety, that stress, that blood pressure rising, going like, oh crap, are you gonna fall? You don't know which one's it. She's the main character, she's definitely gonna live, but you always wonder, oh damn, is this one gonna make it too? And then you get that heel face turn at the end that she was hallucinating her being alive for the entire first half of the third act. It's just ooh. I would say that it is definitely worth a watch if you can handle the heights. But even then, if you had a fear of heights, I would say still watch it, because that would actually help reinforce the power, the atmosphere of this filmmaking, man. This is like $2 to $4 million budget, and it managed to keep my attention the whole way through. This started out, I guess, as a short story, but it's now an hour and 40-minute runtime, and you don't really feel it all that much. You don't really feel the runtime. I liked it. I really did. Definitely give it a look.